미션 임파서블 시리즈는 5편까지 서로 다른 감독들이 연출을 맡은 것으로 유명했습니다. 그런데 다섯 번째인 미션 임파서블 로그네이션에 합류한 크리스토퍼 맥쿼리 감독은 이후 6편인 미션 임파서블 폴아웃, 그리고 이번 미션 임파서블 데드레코닝 파트 1과 바로 다음 작품인 미션 임파서블 데드레코닝 파트 2의 감독과 각본까지 연속 4편을 제작하게 되었는데, 사실 이분, 유주얼 서스펙트, 엣지 오브 투머로우, 탑건 매버릭 외에도 여러 레전드 작품들의 각본가이시기도 한 엄청난 능력자입니다. 그리고 너무 감사하게도 감독님과 인터뷰를 할 수 있는 기회가 주어져서 진행하게 되었는데, 바로 시청해보시겠습니다.
I heard that you're also writing and directing the next Mission Impossible film, and I'm curious what makes the chemistry between you and Tom Cruise so impeccable in the world of professionals for such a long time.
First being, we both really love entertaining an audience. Movies on the big screen, we love the cinema, want to do everything we can to keep that alive. I think the other big part of it is there's really no ego. We don't really argue about anything, the audience decides. We are constantly just exploring and learning. And I think that's another aspect of it is we never assume we know. We're always discovering the process as we go.
Just in case, what if you guys face disagreements about one thing?
The only time we ever argue is on the audience's behalf. We will be debating whether this will communicate the idea or that will communicate the idea. And if we don't agree, we do it both ways. Ultimately, what happens is you feel your way through it. You either make a discovery going after the idea you didn't understand, or you might discover that the thing that you thought was the right thing to do, you go, that really doesn't work. So we just explore it until we understand it or let it go.
Every movie has its own legendary scenes, and in this movie, there was a scene in the trailer where Ethan jumping off the cliff on a motorbike. And I heard you guys tried this scene multiple times.
Yes.
And I believe it was the first day of shooting. What was it like on the day of shooting?
It's a bit of an out-of-body experience. I know there was that clip on the internet with my reaction of it, which I don't remember much about it. I was glad somebody recorded it so that I remember all I was thinking was I was staring at that little crosshair on the monitor and waiting to see blue. And I also knew it was blue and it had to be square. And if it wasn't square, we had a real problem. So first blue, then square, then okay. Every single aspect is checked over and over and over again, and it's all drilled, and it's never left up to just one person. There are a lot of redundancies, and when we're doing a stunt like that, I make sure that several people on set know that they have the authority to cut. What you don't want is somebody feeling like they should have said something, but they weren't allowed to. So it's very democratic. If anybody has any concerns, any sort of safety issues, they can stop everything. That's with the understanding that once Tom takes off, once the motorcycle starts, there's no stopping it.
If I were there, I really couldn't breathe.
No one could.
One of the trailers shown you and Tom respectively on a red and yellow airplane making remarks about the movie, and you were there flying as a part of shooting, and if I were in your shoes, I'd have thought, I'm the director and what am I doing here?
I feel that way every day. It's really interesting. I never set out to be an action director. It's unimaginable when I think back on watching the first Mission Impossible that I would be directing a movie like that, let alone, you can't avoid it. There are times when the only way to write the sequences is to really understand how the action works. It's sometimes too difficult to do from the outside.
So you're renowned for writing amazing films such as Edge of Tomorrow, Top Gun Maverick, and the legendary Usual Suspect. But in Mission Impossible, you are the director but also the writer. Do you find it easier to do both work or more challenging?
Easy isn't the word, but certainly less complicated. I have on these two movies, I'm very fortunate to have a writing partner, Eric Jenderson. So there are many days where we're shooting things that I wrote in the car on the way to work. There are scenes that we're writing on set. So to have that ability to be able to pivot and just write the scenes rather than call a writer who's sometimes in another country and wait for pages, there would be no way to do it.
So if you have a choice, which one do you prefer? Doing just one job or the both of them?
Oh, I definitely like doing both jobs. I would love nothing more than to just have the finished script and shoot it. But that's not really the best things come from. Things might work on the page, but when you get there on the set and you're listening to the actors go through the scene, it just doesn't feel right. And so we change it all the time. We improvise all the time. Not only have we changed the scene totally, we've changed the movie completely. We always go in a direction that best serves the scene and best serves the characters, and many times the entire movie can turn out differently than we expected.
If you can choose to be one of the characters from your own movie, who would it be and why? So first option is living almost forever fighting the alien as Bill Cage from Edge of Tomorrow versus living as Ethan from Mission Impossible, jumping off the cliff or hanging on the airplane on every mission. What is your choice and why?
That is a very tough choice. I would have to say Ethan only because there would be variety. I would get pretty bored being Bill Cage doing the same thing every day.
CGI has become a necessary element in movie. One thing I felt after watching the pre-release premiere was that it was impossible to discern which is CGI and which is not.
Good.
Yeah, and it gave me goosebumps just to realize that the car chasing scene in Rome was mostly real shooting, and Tom's drifting was real, and their race riding that yellow Fiat over there was
Yes.
real. Is it your philosophy that an action film needs real shooting?
It certainly makes it more immersive for us. You discover things that you wouldn't otherwise with the CGI, which is a very valuable tool. And there is most of what we use CGI for is removing camera rigs and things that would just take you out of the movie. But if something was purely CG, you get exactly what you want. And with action, you often don't get what you want. You don't get what you planned. You make these very human discoveries, and that's what makes it real. Not just that it looks real, but it's handmade. It has mistakes in it. It has the unexpected in it. And the movie is filled with those things where something will go wrong, and we'll just write it into the story because it looked good.
So one question from that yellow Fiat scene. It sounded like it was an electric car.
Yes.
So did you guys like swap the engine actually, or?
We put an electric motor in it to give it more power, and it actually, because the car is so small, the motor was so powerful, the car had a mind of its own. It was very difficult to control. I rode in that car one time, and I would not want to ride in that car again.
Yeah.
That's why the drifting was possible, but also because we were in Rome and the streets are cobblestones. It's a very uneven and very unpredictable surface, and drifting, it requires a lot of prediction and a lot of precision. You would be drifting and suddenly the car would hit a cobblestone and it would just go in a direction you weren't expecting it to.
I think the highlight scene in the movie was fighting through the trains and how it drops under the liver and everything. Was that also a combination of real shooting and CGI?
The train that we actually dropped was real. Running up the back of the train, all of those things, all of those were real.
3, 2, 1, action!
When you watch the Mission Impossible series from time to time, Ethan would let go of the enemy that he fought against for life. Maybe it's for the greater good, but sometimes I wonder maybe it's because he's too much of a gentleman? Is it because Ethan saw the hopes in the enemy that they could be rectified, or is it because they could scout them as IMF agents?
It's ultimately about Ethan's morality. It's about Ethan, he would prefer not to find a violent solution. Regardless of who it is he's come in contact with. And we see in this movie the consequences of that choice.
Yeah. I was told that Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1 and 2 were the last phase of the movie. Is it true?
Even if that were true, it might not be true by the time we finish the movie. Because these change all the time, we
Anything can
think
happen.
we know where the story is going, but I can't guarantee that's where it's going to end up.
But still, it's a huge film. With such a responsibility on your shoulder, how would you want your audience to remember the film, and what kind of meaning does the film hold in your life?
The meaning of the film for me, I'll leave to other people to interpret. I'm never here to tell you what I think. I'm only here to give you things to think about.
Okay.
But how I would like the film to be remembered, ideally, I would love people to come at a truly immersive experience and want to see it again. There's no better review than a second viewing. Everyone, please go see Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1. See it on the big screen with the biggest audience possible. It's a big screen adventure, and we hope you enjoy it.
여기까지가 감독님과의 인터뷰였습니다. 천재 감독과 천재 배우가 만난 미션 임파서블 데드레코닝 파트 1은 지금 극장에서 만나보실 수 있고, 로튼 토마토 신선도 99%로 역대 최고의 호평을 받고 있는 이 영화 꼭 극장에서 만나보시기를 강추드리고 싶습니다. 감사합니다. 지금까지 뷰맨이었습니다.
Last night, actually, I've been here 2 nights and we've gone for Korean barbecue both nights. It was just extraordinary.
Next time you come here, you
Yeah.
should really try fried chicken.
Fried chicken.
Yeah, it's same as everywhere in the world, but
Yes.
it's so much more crispier and there are a lot of sauces.
Okay, you have to give me your favorite place.
Okay.
And on my way out of town, I will stop and get fried chicken.
Thank you.
감사합니다.
감사합니다.
Thank you. Here, can you just write down